Hello, New York Giants fans. Welcome back to the Empire State Sports Report. I'm your host, Adrianna, also known as New York Giants Fangirl on social media. If you're not following on social media, here's the handle all spelled out. Make sure you do so because there is a wealth of information about the New York Giants on there. My Instagram fam were the first people to know about the Darren Waller trade because that was the number one place where I always get it up super quickly. It's a lot faster to get up than on here. So make sure you're following along. On top of that, it is the off season. So even though we're still talking a lot of Giants, I'm also talking a lot of golf. If you have putting tips, send them my way. God knows I need them. I'm playing tonight, so appreciate any tips you can send my way. I also love watches and to travel and things like that. So this is the fun stuff that we're discussing in the off season. So join me on Instagram and TikTok, New York Giants Fangirl. We've got things to discuss. Now, last thing about the podcast, please rate and review whatever podcast platform you're listening to. It'll help get this out to other Giants fans who want to either commiserate or celebrate, depending on how things go, together with other Giants fans. And make sure you share with the other Giants fans in your life. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about Darren Waller, okay? Darren Waller. I know this is what we were all expecting to see on our July 4th week, is that retired New York Giants tight end Darren Waller was traded from the Giants to the Dolphins. I couldn't have expected anything more bizarre than that. In fact, so much so, I have a family group chat. You guys have heard this before, those of you who've been around a little while, with my brother, my uncle, and my cousin. And, we're always like talking about how much we have a love-hate relationship with the team. So my brother texts us and says, Waller, LOL. And then my uncle writes back, unreal. And I'm like, what are they talking about? So I'm assuming he writes some diss track about the Giants, right? Because he did this podcast where he said that once Stable lined him up at fullback, that's when he knew he was going to retire because he was like, I'm a tight end. I don't need to play fullback. We're going to discuss that in a second. So that's when he knew he was going to retire, which was during the Bills game, which was pretty early on in the 2023 season. Okay, Waller. Okay. So he retires, decides he's going to pursue this rep career. Sounds like the rep career is not going that well. So then I go on Twitter and I see Tom Pelissero. And I'm like, this is the real Tom Pelissero. This is not a joke. It's official. The Giants have traded Darren Waller. So this is what they did. The Giants gave up Darren Waller and a 2027 seventh round draft pick. And in return from Miami, they are getting a 2026 conditional sixth round pick. Darren Waller signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with the Dolphins. Now, I have a lot to say about this. Let's start with this and Darren Waller's career with the Giants, okay? So the Giants trade for him and he ends up with a 4-year deal with the Giants. He was finishing out his contract. I think the Giants redid it a little bit in the beginning. I have a really bad memory, you guys, so much to the point that I actually thought Darren Waller might have played 2 full seasons for the Giants before he retired, not 1. So if the Giants didn't redo the contract at all, I apologize, but I could have sworn at some point that they did after they traded for him. Anyway, when they traded for him, he obviously had a productive career with the Raiders. A lot of Giants fans, myself included, very excited about it. I was like, the Giants are coming off a playoff season in 2022. They brought in Darren Waller, who's going to be a really big red zone target for Daniel Jones. He's athletic. He's fast. Yes, he's dealt with a couple injuries. So has literally everyone else on this Giants team. Not that worried about it, but let's hope it works out, right? 2023 season comes and look, everyone disappointed us that year, okay? It's not just Darren Waller. The season was a mess. The Giants win 6 games. Daniel Jones gets injured, yada, yada. Okay, I think but sorry, I just pulled up his stats. So he ends up playing 12 games for the Giants in 2023, okay? His stats: 52 receptions out of 74 targets for 552 yards, averaging 10.6 per reception. He had one touchdown. That's it. And the longest reception he had was 29 yards. Needless to say, disappointing for all of us Giants fans. And then he retires literally out of nowhere. I know the Giants had a tough year that year. He was 30 at the time, maybe 31. But still, the retiring seemed to come out of nowhere. We were on board that they had signed Daniel Jones to this contract. Like, this was going to be the future. This is what it is. They brought in Bobby O. Like, they made some adjustments, right? Okay. And then he just up and retires after 1 year. And then we find out that, I think he moved to LA. He's pursuing this rap career. And, he's done with football. And he talked a lot about, the fact that he was in recovery and he was excited to be in New York. Him and his wife go through this whole divorce. Allegedly, he cheated on her. It was a whole thing. So, he talked about how that was, I think, part of the decision to retire. He was having some issues with that mentally, it sounds like. And it was just a tough time for him. Okay. He didn't want to worry about football, but he also talked a lot about the physical side of football and what a toll it takes on your body and how it's so much physically, and how, the Giants are actually one of those teams that does a lot medically. So they pay for acupuncture and all different types of treatments that I guess a lot of other teams don't do. Now, does it help? The jury's still out on that one, but they allow them to do it, whatever. Anyway, that's great for the Giants that they do that. That's important. Recovery is really important, especially for a team that has a lot of injuries. So anyway, he talks about all of this. And now, a year and a half later, he's signing with the Dolphins, which, look, this happens with players. I think you hear this a lot when these guys do these interviews, right? They're basically bred from when they're a kid to eat, sleep, breathe football. They get to the NFL, they either have great careers or not great careers. They end up retiring and they're like, my whole life, this has been my identity, is football all the time, that I don't really know what to do outside of that. Now, Waller, I think, is someone who's probably a little bit of an exception to that, like Kadarius Toney, because he was rapping on the side and wanted to pursue this music career, which it sounds like it didn't work out. So anyway, I don't know if we'll ever know what the full motivation is, but he decided he wants to come back to play football. Here are the reasons why I have a problem with that. And look, it doesn't matter, but if you're a Dolphins fan who's somehow listening to this, these are the things that I would be concerned about if I were you. Ultimately, it's a low risk, high reward signing. It could work out really well for the Dolphins. Here's why I think it's not going to. Number one, he missed the entirety of OTAs. He has no rapport with Tua. And look, this happens a lot in the summer. Guys get injured, players sign out of nowhere, and it doesn't mean that they can't have a good year with the team because they're behind the ball. But look, if you are someone who is thinking about coming back and really taking this seriously, why would you not get in the building as soon as you can? Be there for OTAs, have those private meetings, have the opportunity to get to know Tua on and off the football field, the guy who's going to be your quarterback, who's basically going to determine whether or not you have a good football season this year. It's 50% Tua and 50% him. So that makes no sense to me. It's giving Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think anyone wants to be compared to Aaron Rodgers. I hope if you do, you have a problem. So there's that. So I just don't understand that. And also, so the second thing is, like, he's in shape, but you hear these football players say that being in shape, being in football versus being in football shape is very different. So why all of a sudden you're going to come back in the middle of July and be ready to start training camp, which is, from the player's perspective, when things start to get really physical. We've heard this even from some of the Giants players who just, did interviews with Giants Huddle and stuff, that they're like, oh, this is the fun stuff. We're just out there running around in shorts and shells. Like, there's no tackling. There's no this, there's no that. This is fun. It's fun. It's light. It's great. Why would you not sign on to do that earlier when you're signing with a new team? You have a new coach, a new staff, a new building, a new, routine. Like, everything is different. Number three, you've been out of football for a year and a half. And this is also my thing. Like, it's been a year and a half. And now is when you decide that you're going to pick it up right in time for training camp. I don't know, guys. Also, he's really injury prone, which is something that we saw with the Giants. He missed a few games dealing with injuries. So I don't know. Is there potential there? Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I was so excited when the Giants signed him. Is Tua a better quarterback than Daniel Jones? Absolutely. Does that mean that Darren Waller is going to go off and have an amazing career and then ride off into the sunset, into his real retirement? Who knows? My guess is probably not. But anyway, I just thought the whole thing was so bizarre. I think just the whole situation makes no sense to me, but I'm glad that the Giants got something in return. At least we got a 6th-round pick. It is conditional again, so you never know. Maybe that can be an early 6th-round pick and the Giants can benefit from it. I also feel like at least they got something versus him just up and retiring in the middle of his contract and all of us being like, what the hell are you doing, bro? It sounds like he doesn't really still know what he's doing, but I don't know. He seems like a good dude. I think he might just be a little lost or confused. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, best of luck to Darren Waller and the Dolphins. We'll see how that goes this year. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the quarterbacks because they talked to Giants Huddle. There's a couple things that we can discuss there and the tight ends. So speaking of Darren Waller, let's continue on the tight ends because there's been a little bit of, some good info there. Oh, okay. This is the last thing I wanted to say about Darren Waller because I just saw in my notes here about Bellinger about the fullback situation. Listen, I know every football player is not an expert on every coach, the types of schemes that they run, and the types of offenses that they like to install. However, you had already been with the Giants at that point for the entire summer, entire preseason, and multiple regular season games. And you didn't know that, or you didn't like that you were used as the fullback. Newsflash, you weren't the first and you weren't the last. Daniel Bellinger, Chris Myarick, I'm sure Theo Johnson at some point will be used as a fullback because that's what Dable likes to do. So the fact that that was his call out, I was like, this is the reason when I knew when I wanted to retire. Okay, bro. To each their own. Anyway, Bellinger talked to John Schmelk and said that, he's in the last year of his contract right now. And over the last couple of years that he's just learned a lot about being in the NFL, about being what a Giant, being representative of what it's like to be a Giant. And, he feels like he's really a veteran now and he's learning a lot how everyone processes things. He said that the biggest way that he feels like he's improved is his versatility in the game, that he loves playing football and he loves being used as a fullback, tight end, wide receiver, special teams. That's called being a team player, Waller. Would be nice if you knew something about that. Anyway, I'm just being sassy now. But so Bellinger, full-on team player, said he's happy to do whatever it takes. He wants to be involved in whatever way possible to help the team win. He said in college he was mostly focused on running, but now because he's been used in all these different positions, if you will, he feels like all areas of his game have improved in that instance. He's super excited about the run game as that develops and improves. He said it will open up the passing game for guys like him, so he's looking forward to that as well. He also said that the coaches are doing a great job of putting them in the best positions possible. I talk about this a lot, that I feel like over the last couple of years, I just don't know if the coaches have been using the players to the best of their ability. And, I like to hear that Bellinger has to say that. He also said the tight end group works really well together. He reiterated what Tyrone Tracy said. And what Tracy said is that in the running back room, there's a good group of them. They all have different talents and skills, but they can all be used in very different ways. But he said that that's really beneficial to them. And it doesn't feel like they're competing for snaps because, Tracy's not trying to be Scattaboo, who has a certain style of running, and vice versa. And, Bellinger basically reiterated that yes, we're all tight ends. Yes, we all essentially play the same position, but we all have different skills and talents that we bring to that position in ways that we can be utilized. He was asked about Fedoni and said that he's very athletic. He's the business type that knows what he's doing, focused on improving. He wants to go out there and help the team. And he also said that Fedoni is a quick learner based on being a part of Matt Rule's offense in Nebraska. The only thing I'm going to say about this before people get on me about the pro style offenses, here we go, all the Jackson Dart ride or diers, that Lane Kiffin's was a pro style offense. I have never once heard anyone call Lane Kiffin's offense a pro style. Just saying. Doesn't mean it's not. Just saying, show me an NFL analyst who called it that. What I have heard is multiple people now call Matt Rule's college offense at Nebraska a pro style offense, and that has benefited Fedoni. Let's talk about Chris Manhertz. He said that he definitely feels like this seasoned vet in the room, that obviously he's the oldest out of the tight end group. He's been with the Giants a couple years at this point, and he just kind of feels like the big brother, if you will. He said there's a lot of good different skill sets in the room and good versatility. He said that a young guy like Theo, he thinks has high upside. He said that he thinks they did well last year. And, one of the things that he thinks is most important at this point in his career is being dependable and healthy. He said, that when his number is called, he wants to be able to go out there, he's available to play, and he's ready to make plays. He said his role is to bring physical presence in the run game and emphasize that tough brand of football that the Giants are about. This is what I want to hear from players. I think we feel like there were a couple of years like between Shermer and McAdoo and Joe Judge that they were like, talking about playing blue collar, hard nosed, tough football. And that's never what we saw on the field week in and week out. We've heard that from Dable a little bit. And when you win 3 games last year and you've got your cornerbacks acting like they don't give a shit and taking plays off, it's a little hard to believe that this is a football team that emphasizes being tough. So I'm glad that Manhertz mentioned this, especially as a veteran who's been in the league a long time. This is what I want to hear from players, and I want to see it on the field. So I hope that continues this year. He was asked about Dable and said that he does a good job of putting the players in the fire and testing them during the spring. We've heard this consistently about Dable. And lastly, he said his goal is to remain a dependable asset in the run game and make plays in the pass game when the ball comes his way. Let's talk about Fidone now. He said Dable's is a very tough offense to learn, but I'm reading, this is an actual quote, okay? Thinks his experience in Nebraska under Matt Rule has helped him pick it up quickly. He said there's a learning curve for him. The learning curve for him has been having more freedom in his routes. Now, this is something that Jameis Winston talks about, and we'll get to that in a minute, is that the players say the reason why this offense is so difficult to learn is because there is so much freedom given to the skill players and given to the quarterback. So obviously it's one thing to just learn the book exactly as it is and to execute that. But when the receivers have freedom and the tight ends to run whatever route they want, as long as they're in a specific vicinity, of course it's tough on the quarterback and it's tough on everyone else. So, it makes it hard to learn. So anyway, I think that's probably one of the reasons why we obviously saw some issues with some of the quarterbacks that we've had in the last few years and why, the offense wasn't really run the best way that it could have been. He said that he has a very strong mindset. And obviously after tearing the same ACL twice, he said his focus on just having a strong mindset, coming back from where he came from. He said he doesn't think he lost his athleticism at all. And he also feels like he was able to prove that by being top 3 in the combine. He said that was really big for him. He also said that having long arms is definitely an advantage in both pass setting, but also in blocking. And he said one thing that he does is brings physicality in the run game. Lastly, he was asked about the tight end room. He said it's a bunch of really good dudes, and it's great to learn from some of the older guys. Let's talk about Theo Johnson, who had the most to say here. He said there's absolutely a huge difference for him between this time this year and this time last year. He knows what it's like to be a football player in the NFL. He knows what it's like to be in year 2 and to, feel like he's in a better place with this offense, etc. He also said that he looks at the rookies who think they have it all figured out, only to know that they have no idea what's coming their way, which I thought was entertaining. He was asked about him and Abdul Carter. For those of you who don't remember, they played together at Penn State. They obviously play on opposite sides of the ball. And Theo said that they're very competitive. They always have been like that. They are just 2 top competitors. But the reason why it was taken to the next level is because during practice, the coaches would have them do one-on-one battles in front of the entire team. And the coaches would kind of just sit back and laugh and be like, this is what it's supposed to look like. So, obviously that encouraged the competitive fire and being the best of the best between the 2 of them, which is why during the pre and post draft process with Abdul Carter, when he was asked about Theo Johnson, he said that they still have like business to handle. And, they both have a lot of respect for each other. And they're both very competitive, but, I'm sure it's going to be fun to see them on the practice field. I want to see them do one-on-one battles during training camp. I would Love it. He said that his big goal this year is basically what Chris Manhertz said. It's being available and being healthy to play all 17 games. He said last year he felt like he was really hitting his stride and then he got injured, which was really disappointing to him. And that this year he really just wants to be ready to go. Same thing as the other guys reiterated, that I know when my number gets called that I can go out there and I can make plays. And that is my goal this year. So obviously health is really important. He said so much so that he prioritizes every single thing that goes into his body. He said he's a little crazy about it, but he's really focused on being healthy. He even takes Pilates twice a week, which if you ever have done, especially reformer Pilates, you know how hard it is to focus on building up his core, because he also said that one of the problems that he had last year was he wasn't finishing his blocks. And he said part of it was because he wasn't able to move his hips as well and stay in front of the guy in front of him. So he said that by building up the core strength, he thinks that's going to help a lot with his hip movement and being able to keep guys in place. So I thought that was interesting. Lastly, he said that he's just continuing on, that he's focused on recovery and that he's been experimenting, but things will be used more in the option game. He's also been used in different situations on third down. He said different concepts that complement his skill set and play style. He said he'll still be used in the seam, but think that'll have the opportunity for more intermediate option routes. This is something that we've heard about from a lot of the players so far, from the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. They have been used all over the field, different routes, different combinations, different players on the field, everything. There's been a lot of versatility there this spring, seeing what works and what doesn't. So I'm really curious to see how that translates during the season. Lastly, Dulcich said that he was ecstatic when he heard about Russ Wilson, that they played together in Denver. And Dulcich had a pretty good career with Russell Wilson as his quarterback. And he said he's really excited that they have a great connection and he's happy that he's here. When he was asked about Russell, he said, Schmelk said to him, we hear a lot about this leadership and everyone seems to love Russell Wilson. Like, what's been your experience with him? And he said, he's very loyal, that if you have any type of question, if you have any type of issue, he is always there for you. He's your guy. You can go to him with anything and he'll always be there. He said he's extremely knowledgeable about football, knows everything that there is to know, and that they have a great connection. He said he goes out of his way to provide and help his teammates. He's very much a team first guy. Lastly, Dulcich said he is excited about how he's going to be able to move around, again, reiterating what Theo and others have said, that he's good at stretching the field down the seam vertically, and Russ is a great match for that. All right, lastly here, and then we're going to wrap it up, is the quarterbacks Winston and Dart both spoke to Schmelk. So let's talk about that. Winston, again, reiterated, this is the most challenging one that he's been in throughout his entire career. He even played under Sean Payton, so I think that says a lot about Daboll's offense, right? He said he comes in early and stays late. The concepts are very similar to those throughout the NFL, but there's a lot of freedom and access that the quarterbacks have that make it difficult to learn. This is an example. He said there are one-word calls. So that means that the one word includes formation, protection, alerts, and even more than that. So he said for him, there's been a lot of memorization, that this word specifically includes all of these things and that he has to be prepared and ready to go and know what all of those one-word calls mean. Again, hearing this stuff, guys, like it's all making sense, right? It's making sense why there were issues at the quarterback position over the years. It's making sense why we hear that Daboll is so hard and rigid and tough with these quarterbacks, that they need to know everything. They are put on a higher pedestal than everyone else, and they have to be the best of the best. It all makes sense, doesn't it? He was asked about the fact that, they are getting a lot of different reps and rotations at the quarterback position throughout the spring. And of course, that's probably continue. And the Giants drafted a rookie quarterback who obviously they hope is the future. What is that like? And this is a classic Jameis answer. He said he's grateful for every rep that he gets. He is happy to be in the Giants blue uniform. And then he laughed and said, it's red during this time of year, but he's grateful to have it. And he's just happy to be here and getting whatever reps he gets. He was asked about Jackson Dart, and he said the biggest advice he gave to him was to use the resources that are inside the facility and outside the facility to build your own team. He said medical staff, PR, mentor, whatever it takes to make sure that you build your own team within this team, and to take advantage of the fact that you have all these resources at your disposal. Use them to help you improve, get better treatment-wise, all of those things. He was asked about his leadership style and how, it's so talked about throughout the NFL. He said, the biggest thing that he learned over the years is to just be authentic and be yourself. He said he thinks that's why people gravitate towards him. That's why they talk about his leadership style, because it is his own. You don't ever hear anyone compare Jameis to other players when they talk about leadership style. He really is one of a kind. He's asked about the wide receivers and basically said, like, why should fans be excited about this wide receiver core? It's the same as last year. Obviously, they didn't put up a lot of points, etc. He mentioned Darius Slayton and Wandale specifically. About Slayton, he said he's physical and sure-handed. He's very immersed in the system, very smart, electric with speed, and always open from film study. So I expect to see a lot of Darius Slayton this year. He said that he built a rapport with the players by just getting to know them personally, both in and off the field. That's how he develops relationships with them. Make sure they're all on the same page, all on the same timing and accuracy, and that they trust each other. Lastly, he talked about Wandale and said he asked really intentional questions and he loves being in the meeting room with him. He also was asked about the offensive line, and this is what Jameis had to say. It starts with the trenches, and the offensive line is good. And so are the running backs. They can all block and make plays. He also said, we have Malik Neighbors, and he's electric. Did Jameis Winston install any hope into anyone who's worried about the offensive line? Let me know. All right, lastly, Jackson Dart. He said the first couple of days he felt like he was swimming. I think what he meant to say is that he felt like he was treading water or like drinking from a fire hose, because he's mentioned before that the spring was really overwhelming. I think that's what he meant to say, but he said swimming, so I'm just going by his quote and interpreting it. But anyway, he said he has a really great coaching, a great staff, and the development plan that they have made for him is great. He said that everyone is very helpful, and he appreciates that. He said conceptually, when it comes to the offense, he's basically run all the same ones. But of course, the lingo, the reads are different. The cadences are different. He has to learn how to go through all of that because he didn't have to do that in college. He said the things that he thinks set him apart from other quarterbacks and why he'll have success in the NFL is that he's very aggressive and he has the ability to push the ball down the field. He thinks that those two things specifically are going to be really helpful to him. He also said that he's learning new installs basically every day. So he is learning a lot. He said he's excited for training camp, though, because he feels like right now there's just a lot of learning. It's all basically in the brain, a lot of memorization, that type of thing. And then when training camp comes around is when you actually get to put it on the field. So he's really excited about that because he feels like he's finally going to get to translate everything that's in his head onto the field. And he's actually going to have the opportunity to execute on all of these things. So he's really looking forward to it. I know a lot of us are excited to see what he can do. I think we're going to see a lot of him in preseason. So I'm excited to see him in Daboll's offense. I hope we get to see him out there a little bit with Neighbors, maybe give us some sort of indication of what the future could look like and, see what he's capable of. Like I said, and I still feel this way, I want him to sit this year. I really hope that Russell Wilson does well, but I want to see him in preseason. Let's see what he can do. And if the Giants have 2 wins by week 10, then who cares? Put him in. Lastly, he said that, other things that he thinks are really important is the work ethic and ability to lead others. He said, obviously his talent is one thing, but you have to be able to have these other qualities to be able to put it all together on the field. He said that he feels like he's learning something every single day from Russell Wilson. And he said the biggest thing he's learned is that you have to develop fast and be ready to play because you never know when your time is going to be called. And if he's paid any attention to the Giants over the last couple of years, which I'm sure that he has, he knows that because as we've all seen, the Giants have had to play multiple quarterbacks every single year. So we'll see how things go. Training camp starts July 23rd. It runs through August 13th. That is the final practice that's open to the public, and it's against the Jets. Stay tuned for that. Tickets will be available, I believe, starting July 11th. They are free to the public, but you must reserve them in advance. Again, make sure you're following on Instagram because as soon as that happens, I will post the link on my stories. I will prepare you guys and warn you so you're ready to go. If you want to go, you can get your tickets. So stick around. More Giants content coming your way.